All right, so there I am in a Home Depot where I meant to be at a Walmart with some Hershey chocolate bar. What? There's a problem? Oh, I was gonna do my bit first and get some laughs, maybe have a cartoon picture of a chocolate bar working at Home Depot or hey, so today's something a little different. This is more of a PSA. What I want to do is I want to talk about a common issue a lot of folks are seeing with Windows updates. Um, Especially if we're updating from Intune. You're going to see a lot of failures because of the January 9th update for Windows 10. So let's take a look at that and address some things. Okay, so as with most things in technology, right, we go to Reddit to look at what's trending. And you've probably seen this, right? So this is the 503 4441 update. This is part of the cumulative Windows update on January 9th. And it's basically failing for a bunch of folks with errors. And the reason it's actually failing is because if we take a look at and it's baked into this whole cumulative thing, right? But inside is the 503 4441, right? And this is for Windows 10 only. This is not affecting Windows 11 devices. But what it's doing is it's trying to apply a fix, a security fix that basically prevents attackers from bypassing the encryption with BitLocker. And they can do this using WinRE, which is the Windows recovery partition on the drive. So just so you can tell for reference here, and let's take a look at when we talk about the way these things work here. When you're looking at partitioning on a disk, typically you see the EFI partition here, right? You see your main drive, right? That's going to be your NTFS, your C drive where Windows is, and generally where you do most of your work. And then at the very end, you're looking at a recovery partition. And this is where WinRE lives. So this machine, right? I didn't image or anything, so it came like this. A lot of times when organizations image computers, this gets messed with. Perhaps it's not the right size. It's a lot smaller. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe it's in a different order, right? Maybe it's like, appears here, right? This is all sequential, so the order matters. Now, why is that important? That matters because what this update does is it basically requires you have 250 megs of free space on that recovery partition. But not only do you need 250 megs free, it has to be in the right place, meaning if this is less than 250 megs, or if it's up here in the process, it's going to fail. And this is very common for organizations. Now, how does this update get applied? So if you notice this update, this is a Windows, this is in the Windows update, which is what Intune uses, not in the catalog, right? So the catalog contains the subsequent version, which I'll open here. And this is the individual piece, right? So if you're patching with some traditional means, it's not Intune, this is available in the catalog for you to kind of not push it. But where does it leave our Intune folks? Because our Intune folks are only going to get the larger piece in the cumulative update. So there's basically two things to know right now. The first is Microsoft's official recommendation, because I believe they have the known issue. Yeah. They're working on a resolution and will be providing an update. The error can be safely ignored. That's them saying, don't worry about it. To avoid the error, they're telling you to manually resize your partition to install the Windows update. When you're talking about organizations who have thousands upon 10,000s of devices being remotely managed, especially with Intune, the way we want users to manage devices and admins to manage user devices, this isn't necessarily an option. If I were, administrating that many machines, I'd rather say ignore the error than try to resize all these partitions in the while and risking bricking the devices. Let's actually take a look at how we can address this in Intune. So what you want to do in Intune, if the errors are causing a problem, which they shouldn't be causing a problem, but if they are failing, you would actually go, and you can see I have this issue too. I have 9 errors out of 52 devices. Again, this is only affecting Windows 10. Windows 11 seems to be not affected by this. However, you can literally come in and if you can duplicate this policy, or if you have one that's just targeting Windows 10 devices, you can go ahead and pause the quality ring. And you can hit pause, and what that's going to do is that's going to stop for 35 days. It's going to stop that, right? You can resume when Microsoft comes out with a fix for that. If you have an issue and it did affect a machine, you can uninstall and roll back. These are things you can do from your Windows update rings here in Intune. So I would recommend, if this is causing an issue and Intune is your means of update management, go ahead and pause immediately. This is more likely than not going to affect devices you brought over into Intune through co-management or hybrid join, because they're existing image devices. The chances are, if this was a net new deployment with autopilot, untouched factory image, the recovery partition is probably going to be where it should be. If you do decide to automate the fix of the WinRE, we can attempt to do so. So the very first thing you have to understand is, how do we get the recovery partition? We can build it up here and write it down there. Get disk where object has a partition style equal to GPT, and then sort object by the number. And let's call this disk. Okay, so if I run that, I'm going to call disk, and I'm going to see, okay, so it's my 0 disk online. There we go. Okay, so now what I can do, the partition is equal to get partition disk number is disk number, where the object type equals recovery, and that should be in quotes as well. Okay, so that's my recovery partition. If we want to get all partitions, right, we can say all partitions equals get partition disk number sort object. Why isn't it autofilling for me? Property partition number, right? So, and again, in order for this to work, the partition number has to be the last one. So we would need to check that. So we would have to say if partition number is equal to all partitions, meaning -1, the last one, partition number, meaning if we're looking for if it's the last partition number, we can say new size equals 1 gig. And we can figure out how much to add. So that would be size to add equals new size minus the partition size. Okay, so to actually resize, now we just need to say resize partition and feed it the parameters. Disk number is disk number. We already have that. Partition number is partition dot partition number. If the partition is great, we have that, and then we just need size. Now for size, we can just put in that is the partition size we have, and we want to just add the size to add, and that'll give us the 1 gigabyte. Now, of course, if the partition is not the last number, we're going to write output the win RE partition is not the last partition on the disk. I'll throw this up in the GitHub repo so you have something to look at. I don't think this is a good solution. I think this is a solution. When we zoom out, right, you got to look at problems, zoom in, zoom out, right? So when we zoom out and look at the big picture, this should have been taken into consideration between the Windows folks who are putting out this patch and the Intune team who are like, well, this is how Intune updates Windows, right? We're not using the catalog, we're using Windows Update. So, some disconnect there. I'm confident they're going to come out with a fix for it, but for now, go ahead and pause your updates for Win 10 machines. Again, 11 is fine, and you can try to go ahead and run this and see if that fixes it. Just definitely test first. This is something that has a potential to cause negative user impact. So hope this was helpful. Stay tuned for our regularly scheduled programming in a little bit.
5, 4,